Hey, hey.
Tobago updates. Good morning, Tobago.
Welcome to Good Morning Tobago on Tobago Updates, your source for current affairs in Tobago, Trinidad, and the region. With the perfect conversations to complement your morning routine, I am Kandace Jackson, and let's get started with the news in 90 seconds. The Ministry of Energy and Energy Industry was accused of holding back economic progress in Tobago by Secretary of Infrastructure, Quarries and Urban Development, Trevor James. At the post-executive press conference yesterday, James said that the Studley Park Enterprises Limited is without its blasting permit, halting production. The blasting permit expired in April 2023, but James claims that attempts to renew it began in October 2022, 5 months before the expiration date. They were unable to obtain positive responses from the ministry, according to James. As a result, the THA is unable to profit from the quarry. Meanwhile, James also raised concerns about the ministry's intentions to audit the Studley Park quarry before granting a mining license to decide if royalties should be paid to the government of Trinidad and Tobago. According to the THA Act 40 of 1996, all state lands in Tobago are vested in the Tobago House of Assembly, and all royalties and taxes must be paid to the THA. He said that the prevention of the license is another attempt by the central government to encroach upon the rights of the THA and called on the minister to intervene. And nationally, Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley has 7 days to publicly apologize to the opposition leader Kamla Persad-Bissessar or face a defamation lawsuit. Rowley accused Persad-Bissessar of saying crime is targeting one ethnic group at Sunday's PNM Sports Day in Toko. Persad-Bissessar's attorney delivered a pre-action protocol letter to Rowley yesterday. Failure of Dr. Rowley to issue a public apology will trigger High Court proceedings for the defamation lawsuit. She claimed that the statements had irreparably damaged her reputation, while the Prime Minister attempted to divert attention away from his failures to control the crime situation. And that was your news in 90 seconds. And viewers, just as you heard, we have a whole lot to talk about regarding what's been happening at the Studley Park Quarry. All the work that has gone on over the past several years in terms of, getting the quarry back to a state where we can even export some of the material that's mined there to places like Guyana and so on. However, it seems as though all of those things are halted for now. And joining me on set to talk about some of these issues and to sort of get to the bottom as to what's really going on at the quarry, we have none other than the Secretary of Infrastructure, Quarries and Urban Development, Mr. Trevor James. Good morning and welcome to you, sir. How are you doing?
Good morning, Kandace. Good morning, Tobago. Good morning, Trinidad, and your viewers and listeners wherever they are in the world.
Yes. Now, I want to start off with, Dr. Rowley actually responded to some of the claims that you made yesterday at the press conference. Of course, you made the case, and we're going to get into some details about it as to, what really happened with the blasting permit, and the mining license. But Dr. Rowley said, or claimed rather, that he was prevented from visiting the quarry at his last visit. And I want to know, is there any truth to those statements? Are you aware of his intentions to visit the quarry to see what was going on?
A request came, Kandace, and sometimes we must just speak the truth. A request came to the division from NIDCO to visit the quarry, along with members of the division of the Ministry of Works and Transportation. The Prime Minister is aware of statutory meetings between himself and the Chief Secretary, and surely, if the Prime Minister wants to come to Tobago and to do anything official to visit the quarry, all he has to do is call the Chief Secretary and say, listen, I want to do this, and arrange it. That was not done. In terms of the NIDCO Ministry of Works issue, we have written to NIDCO regarding the airport and asking for a meeting since 2022, February. Up to now, we have not been able to have that meeting to discuss what's going on at the airport. And the Executive Council took a decision that until NIDCO comes to the table then we will not facilitate their request. And that was that.
And do you have any chance to speak to any? Were you involved in any of the communication at all with NEDCO, with the Prime Minister's protocol team, etc.?
No. The information came to me through the administrator. I took it to the Executive Council. The Executive Council decided that the visit will not be facilitated at this time until NEDCO comes to the table to discuss the airport. And that was that. That was communicated to the PS and the Ministry of Works. As you know, NEDCO is one of the companies managed by the Ministry of Works.
Yes.
And that was that. There was no communication about the Prime Minister from the Prime Minister's office or anything like that. And to suggest that some government official in Tobago knew that he had made a request and to suggest that he is the expert or the only expert in geology or some craziness is just talk by the Prime Minister that continues to fuel this idea that there is some big divide between the government in Trinidad and the government in Tobago. There is no such divide. We are governed and administrated by a series of laws, and we continue to try to live within the laws that govern Tobago and govern Trinidad and Tobago, and we will continue to do that. And we hope that the government in Trinidad will do the same.
Now, when was this request to visit the quarry made?
I don't remember the exact date. I only read that article this morning about what the Prime Minister said. So
this was some time ago?
Oh, yes, this was some time ago. It's earlier in the year.
Earlier in the year.
And NEDCO, is responsible for several projects in Trinidad and the airport in Tobago. And presumably they wanted to see, I don't know what visiting the quarry will do to them. Specifically, there's a management team at the quarry. All NEDCO has to do is request material if they want to buy material. It still baffles me why a project management company who is the client on a project will buy material for a project when the project has a contractor. That still baffles me, but be that as it may, NEDCO buys material from us and we sell to NEDCO. We have taken no action to prevent them from buying material. They are a client and we treat them as any other client, and they buy at the price that we sell, and that's that. Clients don't usually come to visit our stock and to make a determination as to what is going on. They take the reports and the information as requested from the managers at the quarry, and there was no need for NEDCO to visit the quarry.
All right, now let's get into, what really happened with the licensing, because for start, the mining license, how long did that expire?
The mining license, the mining license, I'm just going to get my notes. We made a request. For, let's first start with the blasting permit.
Okay.
Because I think there's a need for Tobago public to understand what has happened. If we were to take the Prime Minister's statement yesterday, one might conclude that the Prime Minister, in some tiff of bad-mindedness, believing that he was denied coming to the quarry, and therefore behind the scenes, taking whatever action he can take through a ministry to punish SPEL and to punish Tobago because some government officer in Tobago prevented him as head of the government to visit a site in Tobago. And maybe that is just a bad-mindedness showing forth. But the reality on the ground is that there are laws that govern this arrangement. SPEL applied for a blasting permit in October of 2022. 6 or 7 months before the permit would have expired in April. And we've been trying to go through whatever process the ministry has come up with to secure this license. Never in the history of SPEL has a blasting license expire before SPEL is granted a license. Now, the blasting license allows us to procure explosives in order to blast the rock out of the ground. So this is a critical component in the production process. And it cannot be that a government company representing the people of Tobago, simply because there's a regime change in Tobago, that somebody in Trinidad can decide, some groups of people, because this has to do with the director of the OSHA and the COP, deciding that we must delay this process or being willfully negligent to allow a license to expire without granting approval. This is an ongoing government concern. It's not a private somebody that you could put them through the ringer. This is an ongoing government concern, which under an administration that was headed by the PNM for years never had these issues, and these issues are only coming up now because there's a change in government in Tobago, and I think there is some withdrawal symptoms, taking place in Trinidad, where they still want to feel that they're in charge because the previous administrations just gave them authority to do whatever they want.
And actually, I mean, if I remember correctly, in 2015, when Dr. Raleigh took office, became the Prime Minister, one of his instructions to Tobago at that point in time was essentially for the Studley Quarry to become a private entity, which it did, and that's how SPEL was formed.
That's right.
And to be able to be producing more. And there was a mandate coming from the government to, use the materials. In fact, we stopped importing materials from other parts of the world for aggregate and so on. And it was, there was a policy adopted that we should depend on the Studley Quarry for the highways and things like that in Trinidad. So it's very interesting that, we are having no problem at a state, after we had that mandate from 2015, we are now at a state where we're having problems to get the licensings and necessary permits to operate.
Like I said, Kandace, this is the best way for me to put it. It's like a coke addict having a withdrawal symptom. Your party is no longer in power, and you can't just call and say, listen, I want to do this and get it done. And this is a problem for those in Trinidad. But I mean, the people of Tobago will judge for themselves. We have made the application. We've done everything that we can do, and the ministry, under the direction of the Prime Minister, continues to try to block these licenses. Whether, in fact, the time is coming when we must take a stand in Tobago to issue our own license to SPEL, that may be the future. But for now, we are appealing to the Ministry of Energy and Energy Resources to do what is right by the law and issue the license tomorrow. This is what is required. We are part of the government infrastructure in Trinidad and Tobago. SPEL is a government company, and there is simply no need, there's simply no reason to block a blasting license. In regards to the mining license, again, we made the application. I don't have the date here for some reason, but again, we made the application, and to date, we can't get the license. The ministry has gone so far to send auditors to SPEL, linking the auditing of SPEL for the purpose of paying royalties to the ministry, to the issuance of a mining license. No, this is unheard of. This has never happened.
Before, because I do want to spend a lot of time speaking about that audit and the royalties and so on. But what has the ministry been saying to you whenever SPEL has approached them about what's happening with the licensing?
No, I'm not in the day-to-day conversation, but I'm reading from reports sent to me.
Okay.
Right? An audit was never done on the Studley Quarry by a ministry in Trinidad, by the Ministry of Energy.
So that was their initial response?
It has never been done from 2016, 2017 to now when SPEL came into being. It has never been done. Even before that, it's never been done. There was an acceptance that the rights that is associated with the lands at SPEL have been legally transferred to the THA. And there was absolutely no need to do it. All this is coming about because there's a change in government in Tobago. And the people of Tobago must be clear on that. The ministry, after our request application for a license, visited SPEL on the 15th of November, the 7th of February, the 20th of February, and And when I was there on Monday or Tuesday, auditors were there going through the records at SPEL. And I have an email from someone in the ministry saying that this audit has to be completed before consideration could be given
So not
to
even.
SPEL. To
So it's a
receiving mining
consideration at
license.
this point in time.
Yeah. That they're going to decide whether they will grant SPEL a mining license after this audit for determine the quantum of royalties to be paid. Supposedly to the ministry, and the law is clear that the rights to the land belong to the THA, and no royalties are due and owing to the Ministry of Energy. And in any case, all taxes generated in Tobago are paid in Tobago.
And again, this is very interesting, and I have to bring up that 2015 situation where Dr. Raleigh did indicate that he wants to see the Scarborough Quarry be more productive, because for a time we know that for a time it was down, and a lot of work went into bringing it to the state as to where it is today, where we were able to export. I know also that since during 2021, when their attempts were made to export some of the materials, you guys also encountered problems with the necessary permits to do that export.
Even while Kelvin Charles was chief secretary, there were problems getting this export license. I think the Ministry of Trade, along with the Ministry of Energy, issued a license to Studley Park for 1 month to export. We have private companies in Trinidad have extended license. When SPEL is given an export license, it's given an export license to a specific client or specific vendor for a specific period of time. There is this intent from Trinidad to control whatever we do. It baffles me. What is the need for someone to want to do that? Why do we sit in Port of Spain and in Chaguanas and in San Fernando and in Point Fortin and feel that we must be the people controlling what happens in Tobago? Why is that? We need Trinidadians and Trinidad government officials to just back off and stop and say, hey, what's going on? The Tobago House of Assembly, let's support them in the functions and let them do their work.
And, what can you give us an idea of what's the profit that's being generated by the Studley Park Quarry, especially over the last year? And I know, of course, the pandemic sort of held things back a bit, but what are we missing out on with the continued closure because of the lack of these licenses to do the necessary operations?
Well, for now, I can't speak to the profits. SPEL has always been a challenge for the THA to profit, to generate profits from. There's been challenges with staff, with managerial systems and structures and so on, with equipment especially as well. And we came in meeting SPEL in debt. We have been trying to we've spent the first year getting a feel and understanding of what is the cost of production, what should our prices be. We've explored the possibilities of exporting to Guyana and so on, and we have a lot of people who are interested in purchasing. There's a large market in Trinidad as well from their infrastructure works down there. So there's opportunities for SPEL. We need to still find a way to let SPEL generate the income that we believe there's potential for. No, that is a separate issue to what we are discussing. The ability for SPEL to make a profit is inconsequential to the need and the right of the SPEL and the Tobago House of Assembly to get a license. But SPEL continues to be a challenge, and we've installed a new board recently, and we have an expectation. A new general manager will come on stream shortly, and we have an expectation that we will finally see the turnaround. Hopefully by the end of this year, the full systems will be in place, and we can see a different production level at SPEL. That is our hope. Now, we continue to be able to supply the Trinidad market, and we continue to be able to supply the Tobago market. If the license are not granted, obviously, there can be no asphalt production in Tobago. All the roads and the potholes and the plants we have will be left undone. There'll be no concrete manufacturing in Tobago because aggregate is the key component of that. The whole construction industry might crash. because you can't buy gravel. And bad-mindedness of the Prime Minister should tell Tobagonians what they need to do when election time comes, because we just cannot have someone in government who behaves in this manner. We just can't have it.
All right. Well, Mr. James, we will continue this discussion in a little bit, but first we've got to take a quick break, so please don't go anywhere.
Rise up to a brand new dawning as the passion start to rise. Yeah. Hey.
Tobago updates. Good morning, Tobago.
Welcome back to Good Morning Tobago on Tobago Updates. Well, viewers, we are continuing our conversation with the Secretary of Infrastructure, Quarries and Urban Development, Mr. Trevor James, in regards to what's happening at the Studley Park Quarry. Now, we touched on it a little bit before we went into the break, and that was the fact that the Studley Park Quarry right now is under an audit to determine if royalties should be paid to the government of Trinidad and Tobago. And now, Mr. James, I know this is something that's been very upsetting to you and to the division, and it's almost, and they're basically holding the licensing ransom until, you know, they decide what they're going to do after this audit. But, you know, why? What are you guys preparing to do should they decide that the Studley Park Quarry Enterprises Limited should pay royalties to the government of Trinidad and Tobago and not the THA, as is outlined in the THA Act?
Well, the options available, of course, we can always go to the court for redress. I just want to read for the Tobago public especially, Section 54 of the Tobago House of Assembly Act, 1996. Section 54, item C says, well, let me start with item A. All lands and property of every kind located in Tobago vested in the state, except the residence of the President and the Prime Minister, are hereby vested in the Assembly in the right of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. All lands. All lands and other property of every kind, including the things in action vested in the former Assembly, are hereby vested in the current Assembly. Item C is a critical item. All rights, privileges, and benefits, and all the liabilities and obligations that immediately before the coming into force of this act, the former Assembly was entitled or subject to, are hereby transferred to and conferred or imposed on the Assembly. All rights and privilege and benefits to all state lands belong to the THA. There is just no way that any rational person can stay otherwise. The Minerals Act of 2000 says, Section 39, a licensee mining on state lands or private lands shall pay royalties to the permanent secretary of the ministry responsible for mines in respect of minerals mined in the licensed area within the time period specified under his mining license. Item 2 says, subject to sub-regulation 1, where a licensee can prove to the satisfaction of the minister that he owns the mineral rights mined in the licensed area, he will not be liable to pay to the payment of royalties. Now, that is just absolutely clear. The rights have been transferred to the THA. The Minerals Act itself is saying if you can prove you have the rights, there's no need to prove it. The law says it. There's no need for an audit. And again, the ministry is overstepping. This came to us since November. We just decided, let's not create any more confusion. Let them audit. Let them collect the information they want to collect, in the hope that we'll get the license in time. And they're still not doing it. We could have made a big hullabaloo about this since last year. And we simply didn't. The law says clearly that the land belongs to the THA and the rights belong to the THA, and we do have to pay to the to the permanent secretary. That's what the law says.
Has there ever been a structure in place for the THA to be able to collect royalties from the Studley Park Quarry?
We've just discussed that recently at the Executive Council. And, once SPEL begins to operate like a real professional company, right now we make a subvention to SPEL, the THA that is, to help them manage their costs and all of that. And we hope to move to a place where we make no subvention and SPEL pays royalty, or we come to some arrangement where the Division of Infrastructure gets a reduced price, a significantly reduced price for the material as part of the royalty payment. And hopefully by 2024, January, we get to that place. And all of these actions by the ministry under the guidance of the Prime Minister, who says he's Tobagonian, are concerning to us.
Now, just to dive a little bit more into the royalties aspect of things and how it works, could you explain how does royalties work for a company like SPEL?
Well, I am not sure, but I think generally speaking, quarries in Trinidad pay some percentage of their profit as royalties. I'm not sure what it is, but it's the research that I need to do.
And has SPEL been generating any kind of a profit to be able to pay royalties?
Well, SPEL has not generated profit, but maybe it is not profit. Maybe it is a percentage of the money you receive from, so it becomes part of your cost. But I'm saying, in any case, the THA is subsidizing SPEL. And if any payment has to be made, it has to be made to the THA. The rights to the land is clearly the people of Tobago and the THA, and the ministry again is overreaching. It is similar, Kandace, to what has happened in the airport project. It is similar to NEDCO using CEP to submit an application to EMA to extend the jetty in Scarborough. All of that is illegal. There's no way the EMA should consider an application for property that belongs to someone else from a third party. It's just crazy. And when we bring these things to the fore, people in Trinidad say we've been contentious and we're looking for a fight. But someone can't come onto your land, come onto your property and do as they please, and you sit back and do nothing. Otherwise, they take over your land and they get constructive. What's the word? They become squatters over time and claim the land over time. And we just in Tobago, we just can't stand for that. Remember, there's a reason why the parliament, controlled by a majority in Trinidad, continues to attempt to define Tobago with 6 nautical miles. There's a reason for that. And not define Trinidad. There's an intent and a knowledge in Trinidad that if you allow Tobago to be defined by as the unclosed law says, then the mineral bed and everything in the sea will belong to Tobago, and the parliament just does not want that. And so they define Tobago with 6 nautical miles, and they know that everything within that zone now belongs to the THA to own and to administer. And so in the realization of that, they came at their last bill to take all that away, everything from the low water mark, and say that belongs to Trinidad and Tobago under their control. That's what the bill that they came to Tobago with.
Now, Mr. James, you actually raised it several times, the concern about what's going on with the airport, the new airport terminal construction. What is the latest with that? And what is the THA involvement with that at this point in time?
We've held our tongue when we came into office. The movement of people off the lands was being managed by our division, and there were issues arising with people down there and NEDCO putting them off and police and all of that drama. And we took the decent step of, the gentlemanly step and say, let's call for a meeting, let's discuss the thing. And NEDCO has refused twice. And the people of Tobago will judge for themselves. We've waited a year, and we will discuss this matter again at the council, and we will decide on what our actions would be, because we've disenfranchised several Tobagonians. You've taken 3-4 years to provide the property for them, and they've lost all their money in rent. You're building a terminal that is right adjacent to a major thoroughfare. You've never seen that across any airport anywhere in the world, where you're going to stand on a main road and throw dynamite on an airport terminal building. You are intending to put parking on the inside of the terminal where you have to go and see the runway to park. I mean, the whole project is misdesigned, misconceptualized, and certainly mislocated. But a discussion we could have. I mean, there is nothing wrong in saying to NEDCO or the Ministry of Works, or in this case the Ministry of Finance, who is a client, let's have a discussion with this. We represent the people in Tobago. You are spending your money, which should have been spent by the THA in the first place. And we could have a discussion and come to a reasonable term as to say how we go forward. How do we build an asset that benefits Tobago for the next 50, 60 years? Where does the THA see this asset benefiting the tourism push that we want to have? Where are the linkages we want to make? How will the terminal be managed? These are issues that Tobagonians want to participate in a discussion with, and the NEDCO disrespectfully refuses to meet. But at the same time, they want to come to Studley Park and buy our material. I mean, that would be reasonable.
No, I also know that there might be another land acquisition process when it comes time to build the access road to the airport. Has there been any discussion or any communication with the THA in regards to that second phase of a land acquisition that might be happening?
Well, again, as a project person myself, clearly there's severe lack of planning by the Ministry of Works and the Ministry of Finance with regard to the project. And I mean, we have the designs. I have the designs for sure.
And that's good for the access road?
Well, Pure, under the Ministry of Works, did a design. We have a copy of it. To us, it's misaligned, and it doesn't make as much sense as we would hope that it would make. But again, they have come to Tobago under the last regime and intend to do whatever they please, and certainly expect that we will just coil over and accept whatever they give. But surely we are on a course. We ran on a campaign of transforming Tobago through infrastructure development, and then we absolutely need to participate in it. And we will continue to reach out one more time and ask for that meeting again. And then we would have to be forced to take other steps. I mean, we just cannot have be given responsibility for certain things under the 5th schedule and have the I don't want to say central government anymore, have the colonial government in Trinidad deciding to come back and do what they please. It just doesn't happen. When you give internal self-government to a territory, you don't take it back. I mean, the history of Britain is there for all of us to follow. And there is just this incessant need somehow to control what people do on the ground in Tobago. I don't understand it, and Tobagonians have to stand up and stop being this docile group of people who accept things because somebody from Trinidad do it. They are the same as us, same color skin, same color blood, same voters vote for them, and we represent people. And we're going to represent the people of Tobago as manfully and as strategically and as skillfully as we can, because that's our responsibility.
Now, when it comes to what's going to, you mentioned the development push for Tobago. What's the latest in terms of the development plan for Scarborough and the reimagining of Scarborough? I know one of the first phases in terms is to put the power lines below ground. How far is that project along?
The master plan for Scarborough, as you know, the public will know, we had the largest consultation process in the history of Trinidad and Tobago on that project. It went to a consultant. After the consultation, they've submitted a final report. Excuse me, we are now printing and to submit it to the THA. That will be done hopefully in the next sitting. It will go up on a website that the Division of Infrastructure is building out, along with the THA website, and the public can see it again. We'll go to another phase of consultation. We believe that the people of Tobago have a right to know and to decide where they want to go. The designs, although still preliminary, has come back again that took into consideration the data collected from the consultation, and that process will go that process one more time. We attempted to start, as you know, to do some work in around Scarborough to increase the road infrastructure in Scarborough, to move, to put underground the utility lines and so on. That EOI went out. And we took a decision to put it on hold to see what the designers came back with before we proceeded with that in terms of the location of the underground utility corridor and all of that. So we put that on hold for a bit so we could have a better analysis of what the designers were saying. And we have the design now, so we will assess what was said and what was done and see as a THA what we can do to begin to move the project forward. But in the meantime, we've had interest from several multinational companies who are interested in building out the project. And we reported it to the Tobago public. Good news, hopefully, in the near future.
Oh, certainly looking forward to that. But I also want to turn to what's been going on with our roads, because we have a lot of challenges throughout Tobago, a lot of potholes, a lot of damaged roads. I mean, a lot of some of them were as a result of last year's inclement weather situation and so on. What's a methodology being applied to how we go about fixing these roads? Which roads get the priority? Because it seems as though some roads are just there getting worse for, a long period of time.
Kandace and the Tobago public, we are suffering from a severe lack of financial resources. After the rain, the budgets for the Ministry of Works in Trinidad since 2016 is in excess of $20 billion. To the Ministry of Works in Trinidad is in excess of $20 billion since 2016. The Division of Infrastructure, we are probably one of the larger divisions in the THA. We simply get no money. I mean, when you're outside of government and you criticize and you come into office and you have the actual data, it is almost an impossible situation to accept 4.03%. 4 cents on the dollar is just simply unacceptable. And we continue along this path. In terms of the work that we do, there is a competition for where we go, obviously. We try to attack in-house. That is the roads that are as terrible as they are. We try to attack them as systematically as we can. We have equipment limitations. At the division, we've been asking for more funds to buy equipment and so on. We have limited development funds, so going out to contract is even harder. We have a significant debt that we inherited that the chief is trying to pay to at least to bring down. And so there is a cash crunch. And even in that, we have built a road in 20 days in Scarborough here. The Tobagonians are knowledgeable and accept that the paving and the potholes that we have fixed in a year and a few months is significantly more than was done in many years under the PNM. And so we continue to push as far as we can with the limited resources that we have. The people accept that a lot of these challenges are not within the last year, and they're inherited challenges, and we continue to bring them down as fast and as quickly as we can, and we try to manage within the constraints that we have. We've discussed certain strategies of how we bring additional funds into Tobago, and we continue to pursue those opportunities and to see how we can use private sector funds in order to build out the necessary infrastructure in Tobago, and we will continue to do that.
Now, when it comes to picking which roads you should prioritize, because naturally with budgetary constraints, you have to prioritize which roads need to be done. How do you go about prioritize that? I'm going to get a little insight as to what that process is.
At level 1 would be the main roads. You saw that being executed during the rains last year. we decided that we're going to keep the main thoroughfares open. So the majority of the resources will go onto the main roads. Obviously, there are some secondary roads which well, not secondary, but there are some roads that are not the main thoroughfare that we need to fix. We've done some of that. All fields, we've done the majority of that. There's a part in
There's
the
still
end
a
there
part that needs to get done.
that had some WASA challenges, obviously, and we had to move. And when we moved, difficult to come back there because there are other demands elsewhere. And there's that appreciation that people must have. If we come to an area to work and we encounter leaking water lines and that kind of stuff, we have to move. And when we move and the men go somewhere else, I mean, it's difficult to come back there because the demand and the noise. People are calling me from that road where the Prime Minister has his property on, Lake to Mason Hall Road, for the whole year. And we can't get there, and the road is probably almost impassable now. People in lowlands and suffering, 8-inch Birchwood Triangle and so on. The flooding at Canaan, where the old development was, where that sump is now clogged, behind the little pantent there. So there are challenges all around, but we have limited resources, and we try to do our best to get everybody in a loop and bring relief to some people, and at the same time to do some projects that will tell Tobagonians that we are on the job, and if we can reduce your anxiety that you have suffered for years, as we did in King Peter Bay, tell the Tobago public that, listen, we are intent on building infrastructure, and so we continue along that path. But clearly, firstly, we must keep the main roads going. So we are still in Castara, in-house, and we'll continue to do that.
And, I mean, of course, the Castara Road, as well as that road by Hanging Down, going towards Roxborough and so on there, those two areas were some major issues that came up last year as a result of the rains. How are we, how are we progressing in finding a permanent solution? Because, the division was able to, at least make a way in a relatively short period of time to allow the traffic to flow again on those roads. But of course, it's not the permanent fix.
No, it's not. I presume you're talking about Bad Rock. Hanging Down is another area as well that has,
yes, and Bad Rock, yes.
That has concerns. But in terms of the major roads that we have, Castara, Bad Rock, Hanging Down, Roxborough, Bloody Bay Road are the four areas that are the most treacherous now, and which we have to assign resources to. We have started the planning to bypass Bad Rock if it actually gets worse, and there are a couple of people we need to move, and multi-divisions task force working on trying to arrange for that to happen. So hopefully that will be done, and we can come up. We had the engineers and the surveyors look at Bad Rock and come up with a design. Design is being evaluated now by our staff, and we'll see what the cost is and what may be the best cost-effective design for there. Hanging Down again is one of those areas that is threatened.
Yes.
We looked at it, but not as closely as we could have. And I think the engineering team, consultant team we put together, that's on the list for them to look at and come up with a design for. Also, the road between Roxborough and Bloody Bay as well. That's also on their list. And after the failure in Castara, there's another failure a little further down the hill that's also going to go away if we don't do something. So they're looking at that as well. And I think they're looking at, what's that area? Cookatone in Moriah, Runnymede area, as well as the long-standing problems. To see if we can at least have the design, put the project on a shovel-ready stage. So when monies become available, we can either tender it or to execute it, and that's where we are. And
how much, give me an estimate as to how much that has challenged the overall work of the division, being able to fix just regular roads. How much did those challenges as a result of the weather affect the plans?
Well, when you're in government, you have to be dynamic and you can make plans, but you have to have a policy that when emergency occur, that you should be able to respond. And I think generally we responded well during the bad weather. You may know or may not know, the Ministry of Works got $280-something million additional to budget because of the bad weather, impact of the bad weather in Trinidad. The THA got not a cent. We submitted from the division a proposal to TEMA, who would have submitted it to the to OPM in Trinidad, who is the agency responsible for putting that budgetary request to the government, $230-something million to repair the damages that we saw consequent to the rain, not a cent. And that's where we are in Tobago. We have a government who is intent on starving us for resources, despite what we have emergencies taking place in Tobago, and they give us not a cent. And we make requests, and and nothing.
All right. Well, Mr. James, we are getting ready to wrap up. But I mean, just very quickly before you go, I want you to just explain also, how much the prohibition of the licenses and the blasting permits for the Study Park Quarry is going to affect your road repair program.
Well, if the licenses are not granted, we have a stockpile now on ground. We have blasting material on the ground, and we'll take a decision whether we would sell external clients or not, and whether we'll keep the material for the THA to use. But we are hopeful that the good sense will prevail, and we can sit down as equals between Ministry in Trinidad and the Ministry in Tobago, and we could come to a mutually acceptable solution regarding what the law says and what the responsibilities of both governments are, and we can go forward from there. And the Prime Minister can write the Chief Secretary or call the Chief Secretary and say, listen, Palos, we want to visit, we want to share our expertise with you, and then the Chief Secretary will decide whether that will go forward. I don't see no reason why the Chief Secretary will deny that, but the Prime Minister has to do the right thing.
All right. And, we're also looking forward because later today you are supposed to be having a meeting with the Minister of Works and Transport. And, of course, in regards to the whole licensing issue. Now, we didn't get to talk about that because, we want to hear what comes out of that meeting before, we have a real conversation as to, what the future is for the licensing division and those activities here in Tobago. So, Mr. James, you should be back on with us pretty soon.
I'll do my best to report to the people of Tobago.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. James. And viewers, thank you again for being able to stick with us and be viewing our program. I hope you have a safe and wonderful weekend, and we would see you again on Monday.
It's a brand new morning, rise up to a brand new